Hey there, awesome disease and public health students. I'm going to use these slides to go through a few things about cancer. These are not actually made by me, they're from various organizations that came up with this kind of lesson plan called Decoding Cancer. The main things I'm going to focus on are going to be the misconceptions by going through the true-false and comparing the appearance of cancerous and healthy cells. You answered these in class. The first statement is the risk of dying from cancer in the United States is increasing. It is actually false. It is decreasing. The reason for that is there are a lot more preventative measures. People are a lot more aware of things like smoking being bad for you, but also our treatments are becoming more and more effective. Here's some data to back that up. This is breast cancer trends. It's interesting to see that both males and females get breast cancer. But as you can see from 1975 to 2012 numbers, this is deaths or rates per 100,000. Have been going down. Still high, and so I'm hoping that this trend is continued up to 2020. I need to look up that data. But again, this is because of improved treatment and improved awareness of environmental exposures that tend to cause cancer. Statement 2, cancer can be spread from person to person. That is false. It's not an infectious disease. It's not contagious. It could be genetic, so it could be passed from family member to family member, like from parent to offspring. But otherwise, it's not contagious in any way. There are some viruses that have been associated with forms of cancer. Specifically, HPV, human papillomavirus, has been associated with cervical cancer, and hepatitis C can sometimes cause liver cancer. Statement 3, what someone does as a young adult has little effect on their chance of getting cancer later in life. That is false. Most cases of cancer are a consequence of many years of exposure. Certain foods, especially foods with chemicals in them like preservatives, can be carcinogenic. Exposure to too much UV light and causing sunburns, smoking, and now vaping as well is being tied to a lot of this. There's some bad chemicals that are getting into your lungs, which are very sensitive. Radon is a form of uranium that seeps up out of the ground and can accumulate in basements and homes. It's the second leading cause of lung cancer to smoking. And work environments. If you're working in a mine, or if you're working in a hospital where there's a lot of machines emitting a lot of radiation, even just where somebody is actually just living, regardless of where they're working, can put them at higher risk, depending on what they're being exposed to. Statement 4, there's currently a cure for cancer, but the medical industry won't tell people about it because they make too much money on treating cancer patients. That is false. Again, this is one of those conspiracy theories. There'd just be such a big thing, it'd be impossible to keep a secret with the number of people who would be involved in that. There are also certain caregivers and doctors who are also dying of cancer. And so it seems counterintuitive that they would still continue to keep that a secret. And there are actually some cures that are in wide use for certain types of cancer. We have some treatments that have been very, very effective. Statement 5, treating cancer with surgery can cause it to spread throughout the body. Again, this is a common misconception that we think we're rupturing the tumor and so it will spread. There are very, very few cases of that ever being documented. That is false. Specialists with cancer surgery, they do it safely. They'll biopsy samples beforehand. They'll use radiation to shrink the tumor down. They'll remove the tumor, and then they'll continue to use radiation afterwards. And they check you for years after the surgery to make sure that they've removed the cancer and that it's not popping up anywhere else. So as long as you're following a treatment plan, you're good. Cancer can be effectively treated. That is true, as you have probably gotten hints of. There are 5 major types of treatment. Surgery, where we're cutting it out. Radiation, where we're exposing or using that to kill off the cancer cells and shrink the tumor. Chemotherapy is essentially a poison that's injected into the body that kills rapidly producing cells, so it's pretty damaging to the body, but has been effective against tumors. Biological therapies, again, whether it's changing your diet, getting more exercise, avoiding UV light exposure, and other types of therapies have also been effective. What I find reassuring is that fewer than half of all people with cancer in the U.S. actually die from the disease now. It shows the treatment is getting much more effective and preventative measures are effective. Statement 7, cancer is a group of over 100 diseases. That is true. Carcinomas are cancers of the skin and any kind of surface area, even internal. Sarcoma, connective tissue that can be in muscle, bone, whatever else. Leukemia is in the blood. Lymphoma and myeloma are immune systems. Anytime you hear that lymph, right, that's immune system cancers. And then central nervous system is cancer within the brain or the spine. Those are just 5 of the more common ones, major categories, and there's lots of other ones that exist within them. Statement 8, cancer cells can be distinguished from normal cells because of their abnormal growth. That is true. This is what they're doing when they're doing a biopsy or looking at cells. They can see that some look very different from others, and we'll get more of this a little bit later. Statement 9, cancer can only occur in specific cells in the body. That is false. It can occur in any type of cell in the body. In fact, it's a little scary to think, but cancer cells actually pop up in your body on a daily basis, and your immune system either destroys them or the cells themselves undergo self-destruction. But this is why there's no real cure for cancer. It can pop up in any cells at any time, and it becomes very hard to treat if it begins to spread all around the body. Statement 10, cancer develops because of abnormal gene function. That is true. There are definitely certain genes we know about now that are closely associated with cancer. The BRCA1, BRCA2 genes are associated with breast cancer. And these are usually genes that are meant to prevent cancer from forming, right? They are controlling cell division. And so when there are mutations in these genes, cell division goes out of control, and that's what a tumor is. So you can see the difference between a healthy and a cancerous cell. This is images of those, but here's a sort of more direct comparison. You'll notice that the cytoplasm in cancer cells is diminished, right? They're definitely kind of this crumpled, unhealthy look. The nuclei, there are multiple nuclei inside the cancer cells, and again, this is because they are dividing frequently. The nucleolus as well, there are multiple nucleoli inside these. Again, these are important for making DNA and proteins and ribosomes, and it's just because these cancer cells are in overdrive that they're just making multiple of everything. And the chromatin itself, which is the the unraveled DNA, you can see it's just in permanent unraveled form. There's so much DNA that's been copied here. And again, you can see that this is just out of control cell division. There's no regulation here at all. The cell is actually very unhealthy and almost falling apart because of all this rapid dividing. Now, cell division is very complicated, and there are checkpoints, right, where it is making sure that it is not making mistakes, and it can repair if there's DNA damage, it can try to repair it. If it's so severe that it can't be repaired, then the cell will just go through a self-destruction process called apoptosis. So these mitosis checkpoints detect failure in spindle fibers to attach. Oh yeah, and this is if the separation doesn't go right. So all checkpoints require the function of complex proteins, and these are based on genes that we have, right? Mutations in the genes for these proteins are what can then cause this out-of-control cell division, and that's cancer. So checkpoint failures due to gene mutations allow cells to continue dividing despite damage to their integrity, despite mutations in their DNA. So it's all about, if these strict rules are broken, then that's what leads to the cells misbehaving, which in this case would be growing out of control. Hi, awesome disease and public health students. Just continuing our lesson about cancer. Again, we're going to look at how certain cellular reproduction checkpoints or cell division checkpoints fail, and that can lead to uncontrolled growth of cells, which leads to a tumor and cancer. So normally cells follow strict rules, and there's a variety of different mechanisms that control this. The two I want to highlight are genes within the cell's DNA, and their job is to regulate. So tumor suppressor genes do exactly what their name sounds like. They are the ones that are checking DNA for mutations or abnormalities before allowing the cell division to continue forward. So think of these again as the brakes, right? They're sort of the big stop sign that comes in, make sure that any abnormalities get fixed before cell division continues. And so they don't let cells reproduce out of control. This is a control mechanism, right? However, if these suppressor genes lose their function, that can lead to a tumor because there's no stopping. Proto-oncogenes are sort of working on the other end of the spectrum, right? These are providing the go signal, right? They check the DNA, make sure everything's good, and then they say, okay, the cell is approved for cell division. Think of them as like the gas pedal, right, in a car. That's the go signal. And so if these are malfunctioning, they're usually stuck in the on position, right? Imagine if the gas pedal was stuck in your car. This is what leads to out of control cell growth. So you did a little role play activity on Flipgrid where you had to sort of act out cell division with properly working suppressor genes and proto-oncogenes, and then what would happen if they did not function. Thanks.